They picked the wrong kid. That much was clear the moment Malik James stood up from the cafeteria table and looked Parker Hale dead in the eye. Not loud, not angry, just calm, focused. And when it was over, when Parker was on the ground gasping for air, and his boys too stunned to speak, that's when the story of the new black kid at Northbridge really began. But what nobody saw was everything that led up to it. Because Malik didn't walk into that school looking for a fight. He walked in trying not to be seen. Malik showed up at Northbridge High with no welcome committee, no whispers of interest. Just the dull buzz of hallway chatter and a slammed locker 2 feet from his head. The receptionist barely looked up when she handed him his schedule. The guidance counselor didn't offer a tour. He found his first class on his own, slipping into the back row of Algebra 2 as the teacher wrote out equations that made no room for introductions. No one turned to say hello. No one asked who he was or where he came from, and that was fine by Malik. Because experience taught him that attention didn't mean curiosity. It meant scrutiny, judgment. He'd learned long ago how to become small, how to shrink his presence until it barely registered. Not out of fear, but survival. It was second nature, like breathing. Back in Atlanta, he'd learned how to read a room before he ever opened his mouth. Whether it was on the block, in a classroom, or walking into the corner store, Malik knew how to scan for exits, for threats, for people who needed only one excuse to turn on you. His older brother called it moving quiet, blending in without disappearing. Malik had gotten good at it. The hoodie helped. The second-hand jeans helped. No designer logos. Nothing that made him stand out or made anyone look twice. That first day, he kept his head down, memorized the halls, found the least crowded lunch table, and ate slowly, methodically, like he had all the time in the world. But Northbridge wasn't like where he came from. It was cleaner, shinier. The kids were louder, laughing with that easy confidence that comes from never having to be on guard. They wore Jordans without scuffs. They carried MacBooks in padded sleeves and called the principal by his first name behind his back. Malik noticed the difference immediately. He also noticed the looks, the kind that scanned your outfit and moved on before landing on your face, the kind that judged and dismissed you in one motion. First period, second period, third, same story. Eyes flicking past him, a few double takes, a whisper or two. He didn't care. He just needed to make it to graduation. That was the goal. No drama, no fights. Just get through. But even silence becomes a threat when people are looking for a reason. Malik's third day, he sat alone in the cafeteria, his tray holding a burger, apple slices, and a chocolate milk. Same table, same routine. He liked it that way. Predictable. Out of the way. He was halfway through his burger when it started. A loud voice from 2 tables over. "Yo, you bring that from home?" Laughter followed. Malik didn't even look up. He didn't need to. He already knew the tone. Parker Hale, football captain, all-state receiver, golden boy of Northbridge. Malik had heard his name whispered in the halls, seen the way people lit up around him like he carried some kind of gravity. And there he was, standing tall, with his varsity jacket unzipped like a crown. Parker grinned, then added, "Man's eating like it's the Great Depression." The table around him cracked up. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. Malik stared at his tray, chewed slowly, and kept his expression flat. He wasn't going to give them a reaction. Not a smirk, not a frown, nothing they could work with. But silence only made Parker louder. "What, you deaf? Or just slow?" said one of the other boys, short, spiky hair, trying too hard to look tough. Malik finally looked up, just for a second. Then he grabbed his milk, stood up, and walked away. No insults, no scene. He left his tray behind and disappeared into the hallway, his footsteps measured, head still high. But walking away didn't mean the problem left with him. That was just the start. In science class, someone knocked Malik's books off his desk. Nobody admitted to it. The teacher didn't see. The class snickered while Malik bent down, slow and silent, and stacked his things again. Then came the graffiti, red, dry erase marker scrawled across his locker. Charity case. Malik wiped it off without flinching. Still said nothing. He took the bus home that night and walked the final blocks to the house where he and his brother rented the upstairs unit. The second he opened the front door, the scent of sweat and old leather greeted him. His brother Jalen was already in the garage, wrapping his hands. "You good?" Jalen asked without looking. "Yeah," Malik muttered, voice tight. "School?" Malik nodded once. Jalen didn't say anything else. He just tossed him a pair of wraps. Malik caught them, went into the corner, and started taping his fists. That garage was more than a gym. It was therapy. Malik stepped onto the mat, stared at the heavy bag, and let everything loose. Jab, jab, hook, step back, pivot, repeat. Each hit snapped with precision, not rage. Jalen watched from the side, arms crossed. "You holding back," he said. "Trying to." "Good," Jalen nodded. "But don't forget, trying doesn't mean letting yourself get stepped on." "I'm not looking for trouble." "I know," Jalen said, "but trouble might be looking for you." And just like that, Malik understood. This wasn't Atlanta, but the game was the same. The faces changed, the buildings were nicer, but the test never changed. By the end of his first week at Northbridge, Malik wasn't just the new kid anymore. He was the one people whispered about. Not because of anything he did, but because of what he didn't. He didn't flinch, didn't cower, didn't respond the way they expected. And that silence, that calm, it made people uncomfortable. Parker Hale especially. The moment Malik walked away from his jokes without even a glance, Parker had made up his mind. Malik thought he was better than him. That's how it felt. That's what he told himself. That a kid who wore hand-me-downs and sat alone had somehow disrespected him by not playing along. And when someone like Parker feels disrespected, they don't get introspective. They get petty. It started with rumors, the kind that drifted through locker rooms and lunch tables, little lies that sprouted legs. Someone said Malik had been kicked out of his last school for fighting. Someone else said he'd been arrested back in Atlanta. "He's got a record, man. He fought a teacher once. He's on probation." None of it was true, but the truth didn't matter. Malik's quiet became mystique. His focus, misread as threat. He wasn't just some kid trying to graduate anymore. He was something darker in their minds, something dangerous. Parker leaned into it. He'd tell stories in the locker room like he was the hero in some movie. "Dude stared at me like he wanted to kill me," he said once, loud enough for half the team to hear. Didn't even blink, straight up serial killer vibes. They laughed, not because they believed it, but because Parker laughed, and they followed his lead. He was the type of guy who turned high school into a kingdom and named himself king. And when he felt that crown slipping, because someone didn't bow, didn't laugh, didn't react, he needed to win control back. Malik noticed the shift, the way kids watched him longer than necessary, the way teachers gave him the same too careful smile, the way even some of the black kids at school started giving him space. He said nothing. He didn't run from it, but he didn't invite it either. That's the thing about silence. It holds weight, more than shouting ever could. Then came gym class. It was a Tuesday. Wind howling outside the brick walls. Malik changed into his sneakers and joggers, standing at the edge of the basketball court as Coach Davis called out names. Pair drills. Parker's name followed Malik's. Loud, on purpose. A few boys exchanged looks. Someone even chuckled. Malik's face didn't move. Parker stepped up, bouncing the ball lazily. "Let's see what you got," he said, tossing it hard. It smacked Malik's chest with more force than necessary. Malik caught it clean, looked at Parker once, then passed it back. Smooth, sharp. The ball hit Parker square and loud, echoed through the gym like punctuation. A few boys snickered. Malik didn't smirk, didn't puff his chest. He just waited for the next pass. That was the moment Parker decided he didn't just dislike Malik. He resented him. The next few days, it all got worse. Gum stuffed into Malik's locker vent. A water bottle emptied into his backpack during lunch. Random snickers when he walked by, like his presence was a punchline. Still, Malik didn't swing back. Not physically, not verbally. He kept walking. But everyone at Northbridge knew what was happening. The teachers, they saw it. They just didn't want to get involved. And the students. Most stayed silent. Because getting involved meant becoming a target, and no one wanted that smoke. What Parker didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that Malik wasn't avoiding a fight out of fear. He was holding back. Because every time he gritted his teeth instead of speaking, every time he picked up his bag off the floor without looking up, he was measuring the cost. Calculating the line between defending himself and losing everything he came here to build. But Parker couldn't let it go. By Friday, he had a plan. The day was cold, the air sharp with wind. Most students rushed out after the bell, coats zipped, earbuds in. Malik stayed behind to help Mr. Dalton, one of the janitors, stack old folding chairs near the gym's side entrance. Not because he was trying to earn points, not because he wanted to be seen, but because it gave him a reason to move through the school slower, more carefully. That's how he stayed ahead, by staying intentional. He didn't know that Parker and his boys were already waiting outside. Around the corner near the dumpsters, Parker leaned against the brick wall with Logan and Ty on either side, hands deep in jacket pockets, sneakers crunching on frost. They weren't talking. They weren't laughing, just waiting, planning. The moment Malik stepped out, his headphones in, his hood up, they started moving. Silent, smooth, like they'd practiced this moment. "Yo, Malik," Parker called, stepping out from the shadows. Malik pulled an earbud, stopped, said nothing. "You think you're tough?" Parker asked. "No," Malik replied. "I act like I want to be left alone." "You don't get to choose that." Malik's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked around. No teachers, no traffic, just them. 3 against 1. Parker took a step closer. Logan shifted left. Ty leaned right, a triangle closing in. "You got something to prove?" Parker asked. "Prove it." That's when Logan made the first move. A shove. Sharp. Director. Malik barely moved. His feet held ground. He looked at Logan, voice low. "Back up." Parker grinned. "Go on, Logan." Another shove. Then a punch, sloppy, wild, aimed at Malik's shoulder. But it didn't land. Malik had already moved. Fast, fluid, stepped in, hooked Logan's wrist, pivoted. One sweep. Logan slammed into the pavement. Breath ripped from his lungs. Ty flinched, started to move, but paused. Too slow. Malik didn't hesitate. He turned to Parker. "Don't," he said. But Parker had come too far to back down. He lunged, fist raised, rage clouding reason. Malik ducked, turned, and dropped his elbow into Parker's ribs. Not hard enough to break, just enough to collapse him. Parker fell, gasping, knees buckling, arms limp. 12 seconds. That's all it took. Ty stood frozen, eyes wide. Logan groaned from the ground. Parker wheezed. Malik didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just stood there, chest rising slow, breath steady, like someone who knew exactly what he was capable of and chose not to go further. And that, more than anything else, was what made them afraid. When Mr. Halpern, the assistant principal, came storming around the corner near the dumpsters, the scene didn't match what he was expecting. There was no blood, no fists flying in the air, no screaming or crying. Just 3 boys looking like their pride had been mugged. Logan sat on the ground clutching his ribs and staring at nothing. Ty stood still with his hands hovering somewhere between surrender and confusion. And Parker, Northbridge's golden boy, was doubled over, one knee down, coughing hard like he'd had the wind snatched from his lungs. Malik stood there calm, hands at his sides, eyes steady, like he was already 2 steps past the fight and waiting for the world to catch up. Halpern's eyes bounced between them, trying to figure out what just happened. "What's going on here?" he barked. Parker scrambled to his feet first. "He jumped us," he shouted, pointing at Malik. "He's crazy. We were just talking and he snapped." Malik didn't move, didn't say a word, just stared at Parker like he couldn't believe how fast a lie could be born out of shame. Ty looked down at his feet. Logan didn't say anything at all. Halpern's voice cut through the tension. "All of you, inside. Now." They walked back into the building with the low hum of whispers starting to build around them. Word traveled fast in high school. By the time they hit the front office, the story had already leaked to a few hallways. 3-on-1 behind the gym. New kid laid out Parker Hale. That last part was all anybody needed to know. In the waiting room, Malik sat across from Parker. No one spoke. Logan had already called his dad, who was on his way. Ty sat silently like he wished he could teleport out of the room. Parker muttered under his breath, over and over again. "He's dead. He's done. He's gone after this." Not to anyone. Not even to convince himself. Just saying it like a spell, hoping to make it real. When Malik was finally called into the office, Principal Rollins sat behind his desk like a man who didn't want to deal with any of this today. He looked tired, looked like he wanted someone to admit guilt so he could write it up and be done with it. "You want to tell me what happened, Malik?" he asked. Malik didn't lie. He didn't spin. He told the story plain, straight. No fluff, no anger, just the facts. How he'd been harassed for weeks. How he walked away every time. How they followed him behind the gym. How Logan shoved him. How Parker lunged. How he warned them before it got physical. Rollins listened with the kind of silence that feels heavy, like he already made up his mind before you walked in the room. When Malik finished, Rollins leaned back in his chair. "You're lucky no one's bleeding," he said. Malik didn't react. "You know we have a zero-tolerance policy here. Doesn't matter who starts it. What matters is who finishes it." Malik looked down for a second, then back up. Calm, like always. "Then maybe you should talk to the ones who never tried to stop it." That made Rollins pause. Just for a moment. Like the idea hadn't occurred to him until now. But then the silence closed in again, and the conversation ended. Malik was told he'd be notified if further action was needed. By Monday, the entire school had seen the fight from every angle, except the truth. A video had surfaced. Shaky, zoomed in from a distance, posted anonymously late Sunday night. It started with Logan charging in, but the frame shifted before his swing landed, cutting out just enough of the beginning to make Malik look like the one who moved first. The clip didn't show Malik warning them, didn't show him being shoved. It just showed Parker on his knees and Logan on the ground. It lasted 9 seconds. That was all people needed. The caption read, "He thinks this is a movie." Comments came quick. "Damn, he dropped Logan like nothing." "Nah, bro's a straight-up psychopath." "Why's he even at this school?" A mix of admiration and fear. People weren't sure if they respected Malik or were scared of him. And Parker? He wasn't done yet. He shared the video through burner accounts, pushed a narrative, in the locker room, in the lunchroom, anywhere someone would listen. He's violent, trained to fight, dangerous. He even went to a few teachers and said he felt unsafe. Told them Malik had threatened him before. Told them he didn't feel comfortable in class with him. And some teachers? They listened. That week, Malik walked into school and saw 2 security officers stationed near the entrance. They weren't there last week. No one said it was about him. But everyone knew. The whispers were louder now, and they weren't just jokes anymore. They were questions. Is he gonna snap again? Did he bring a weapon? Should someone say something? The principal made an announcement over the intercom. A formal review hearing will take place Thursday to assess the incident involving multiple students. Until then, all involved will remain under administrative observation. Malik sat in his first period class, listening to the words echo off the walls like he was being read a sentence. People stared, not all at once, but in waves, like his desk had become radioactive. No one sat next to him. No one spoke, not even to mock him. The fear had turned real. He wasn't being ignored anymore. He was being avoided. And Parker, he wore a bruise on his ego and turned it into a badge. Walked the halls like a victim. Told anyone who would listen how he tried to reason with Malik and got attacked instead. He had allies, people who knew him, teachers who liked him. A reputation built over 3 years. Malik was just a name, a rumor, a cautionary tale dressed in a hoodie. But the worst part wasn't the lies. It was that nobody seemed to want the truth. Not really. They saw a big, quiet black kid and filled in the blanks. And once that version of the story took hold, anything Malik said after was just noise. So he stopped trying to explain, stopped reacting. He just walked the halls like a ghost in daylight. Everyone saw him, but no one looked him in the eye. Thursday morning arrived like a storm that had been waiting just beyond the horizon, slow-moving and heavy. The building felt colder, tighter. The halls that once buzzed with noise now had a strange hush to them. It wasn't silence, just restraint. Everyone at Northbridge knew what day it was. Malik felt it the moment he walked through the front doors. Not because of anything he saw, but because of what he didn't. No whispers behind his back, no jokes from the usual cliques. Just stares. Careful. Measuring. As if he were something between a bomb and a lesson. Teachers looked at him the way people look at thunderclouds. Respectful, but uneasy. Classmates parted in the hallway as if his very presence might spark another explosion. That's what the school had become. A place holding its breath, waiting for something to snap. Malik walked with the same calm he always had. But inside his chest, it wasn't peace. It was pressure. The kind that builds up when the truth feels smaller than the lie already spreading. And by now, the lie had roots. Parker had spent the past few days planting them everywhere. In offices, classrooms, texts, group chats. Telling teachers he didn't feel safe. Telling his counselor that Malik was aggressive, unpredictable, even threatening. By the time the hearing was scheduled, the administration didn't see a kid who'd tried to walk away from a fight. They saw a headline waiting to happen. Someone dangerous. And that was enough to call a meeting. The room they used was meant for small conferences. Plain walls. One long table in the center. On one side, Principal Rollins, Assistant Principal Halpin, a district officer from the board, and the head of student affairs. On the other, Malik, his older brother Jalen, and a thin folder filled with written statements Jalen had made him prepare in case things got ugly. Parker didn't show. He didn't have to. His story had already walked in before Malik sat down. Principal Rollins started with formalities, names, dates, the school's policy on violent behavior, the importance of safety. The words were polished, almost rehearsed, like he'd said them 100 times. Then the district rep leaned forward and asked, "Do you have any history of disciplinary issues at your former school?" Malik shook his head. "None." The man scribbled something on a notepad. "Is it true you've received combat training?" Jalen answered for him. "He trains at home. Boxing, martial arts. It's self-defense. Controlled." Another pause. Another note scribbled down. Then came the video, played on a small monitor at the corner of the room. The edited version. 9 seconds long. Logan rushing in. Cut. Malik responding. Looped. Parker on his knees. Paused. No sound. No context. Just enough to raise eyebrows. Enough to plant doubt. The assistant principal glanced at Malik. "Can you explain what we just saw?" He nodded. "That's not the whole video." "Do you have the original?" "Number. But it started before that. I told them to leave me alone. Logan shoved me first. And yet you were the one who incapacitated 3 students." Jalen sat up straighter. "Because he knows how. He's trained. He's also trained not to lose control. He could have hurt them bad. He didn't. That's what control looks like." The room went still. The district rep flipped through his notes and frowned. "This is a serious matter. If Malik is seen as a threat, we have to take appropriate steps to ensure the safety of others." Malik finally spoke again. "So what should I have done? Let them beat me? Stay quiet until someone else decided I mattered enough to stop it?" His voice didn't shake, didn't rise, just pressed into the silence until it filled the room. No one responded. Jalen folded his arms. "This isn't just about a fight. This is about what you see when you look at him. Because when Parker got up and told you all he was scared, you believed him, no questions. But when my brother said he was harassed for days, y'all needed proof. You saw a tall black boy who didn't lose, and that scared you more than the kids who started it. They dismissed the room not long after, said they needed more time, more discussion." Malik and Jalen walked out into the parking lot, with the winter wind slicing through their jackets. Neither said anything at first. Finally, Jalen exhaled and said, "You did good." Malik shook his head. "Doesn't feel like it." His brother gave a slow nod. "They heard you, even if they act like they didn't." That night, Malik sat on the back steps of their apartment, hoodie up, watching the sky. The stars were dim under the city glow, but he stared anyway, wondering if there was a right way to exist when the world had already decided what box you fit in. He didn't regret defending himself, not even a little. But he hated that doing the right thing still made him the villain in someone else's story. The next day, the school felt different again. Not calmer, just quieter, as if everyone was waiting to see how things would land. At lunch, Malik sat in his usual spot. Same table, same tray. But now, nobody dared say a word. No one threw jokes across the room. Even Parker was quiet, seated at the far side of the cafeteria with his boys around him, retelling the story like he was the one who got ambushed. He added details that hadn't existed. How Malik snapped out of nowhere. How Logan barely made it out. He didn't even flinch when people raised their eyebrows. He told the lie with so much confidence, it started to sound like truth. But not everyone was convinced. That's when it happened. As Malik chewed slowly through his apple, someone slid into the seat across from him. A girl. Pale skin, short auburn hair, round glasses. She didn't say hi, didn't smile. She leaned in and whispered, "I saw everything." Malik looked up, unsure if he'd heard her right. "Behind the gym," she said. "I was there. I didn't mean to be. I was sketching the dumpsters for an art project. I saw all of it." His eyes narrowed. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because if they expel you over Parker's lies, I'm just as guilty for staying quiet." He stared at her, not suspicious, just unsure. "You're not messing with me?" "No." Her voice didn't waver. "I already told the assistant principal. I'm going to the next hearing. I'm done hiding." That night, Malik told Jalen everything. Jalen raised an eyebrow. "You trust her?" Malik shrugged. "I don't know," but she sounded serious. His brother leaned back in his chair. Sometimes the right people stay quiet, until the silence starts costing them too. The follow-up hearing happened the next morning. Same room, same table. This time Delaney, nervous but clear, sat on the far end. She told them what she saw, how Parker and his friends surrounded Malik, how Logan shoved first, how Malik said more than once for them to leave him alone. "He didn't attack anyone," she said. "He warned them. They didn't listen." Her voice cracked at the end, but her words held. And the moment she finished speaking, the entire tone in the room shifted. They still dismissed the room, still said they needed time. But Malik could feel it. Something had changed. Not just in the board members' faces, but in the weight he carried every day since it happened. He had been alone in that hallway for weeks. Now someone else stood next to him. The final decision came the next morning. An email. Official. Cold and short. Malik James will not face disciplinary action. The board acknowledges sufficient evidence supporting self-defense in the incident behind the gymnasium. Jalen printed it out and pinned it to the fridge. But victory didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like breath after drowning. Not relief, just survival. Malik returned to school, but the air hadn't cleared. Parker avoided him now. So did Ty. Logan kept his head down and stopped making eye contact. Even the students who once laughed at Parker's jokes around Malik now avoided the table altogether. No apologies, no explanations, just distance. And yet Malik walked the halls a little taller. One day, as he grabbed a book from his locker, Delaney passed by. She didn't stop, just gave a small wave, a quiet gesture that said more than words could. Malik nodded back, a small smile. That was enough. Later that week, he saw something new. 2 freshmen standing up for a kid being teased outside the gym, a teacher stepping in instead of walking past, students whispering, not about him, but about how Parker had lied, how he got called out in the office, little things, small shifts. But sometimes change starts that way, quiet, steady, one moment at a time. Malik didn't win anything that week. Not really. But he didn't lose himself either. And in a world that expected him to break, that was the real fight. One he walked away from with his head high and his future intact.